Welcome to the Book Dormer. Today is the April wrap up. So we're going to talk about what books I completed in April. I got through 4 physical books and also 2 audio books. I managed, I was close on a 5th. It just isn't happening. Work got busy, life got a little busier, and just not hitting that last one, right? I read for pleasure. And that's how we really should. If we're doing fiction, we really should be reading for pleasure. And it just would have been work to get through it. All right. I told you I got through close though on 1. That's getting close. Yeah, in case you can read it. Yeah, I use French flashcards for my bookmarks. You ever seen the thing that says like what D&D alignment you are based upon how you do bookmarks? Normally, I'm probably right in the user receipt, but I've been using these French flashcards, and I don't know, they work. They're the right size. So that's kicking off for next month. But let's talk about April and see what we had. All right, first up, boom, we had Antibot. Sierra Greer came out 14th of March, 2024. This is Sierra's first book in print. This is about Antibot, who's supposed to be the perfect girlfriend. Well, she's one of those bots, if you're wondering where this is coming from. And she is learning. So Antibot is figuring things out as she goes, which is probably not actually a great thing for Doug, the very weak, sad man who owns her. And quick aside, if you happen to own a sex bot, all right, at least treat him nicely, at least. We're all laughing, then like 10 years from now, we'll be like, oh, yeah, he was at Head Times. I did a long review on this. I did a non-spoiler long review. If you want to know a little bit more about Antibot, so I'm just going to go ahead and say, hey, I did like it. It was a good story. I did enjoy it. You definitely feel for Annie. It's funny how much a story about a robot who is not being treated as human makes you think about what it means to be human. All right, next up, one I haven't talked about on the channel yet. I actually got this because, I wanted this story anyways, and then the impetus showed up because it showed up on the book clubs from our fantasy, which is Godkiller by Hannah Keller, who is a Northumbrian, lives in Scotland. This is from 2023. I didn't mention Sarah Greer is American, so we're going to hop around. And there's a theme this month. The 4 books, I actually made it through, are all from lady authors. Again, I don't choose things based upon any of those type of standards. Like I don't purposely say, oh, I'm only going to read Asian fantasy this month. It's just what am I wanting to read at that time? That's what I'm going to read. And wherever they're from, happy. All right, so this story. I really like this story. The reason I didn't put out put out a unique one on it. I have the sequel, so I didn't get through the sequel yet. It showed up, so I'm going to want to run through the sequel. And also, it's from 2023, January. Other people have talked about it, so that's why I'm just doing it here. Anyways, Kissin. We got 3 characters. You got Kissin, the Godkiller. She has 1 leg, so a 1-legged Godkiller. But she does have a mechanical leg. Somebody has her hooked up. She is she's one of those super hard, tough, competent people who is also very caring. I like that dichotomy instead of being, the tough girl who has to like give up everything that seems feminine to be considered tough. She's tough and feminine, and she also is kind, and she has friends and people she cares about. And she kills gods who she hates. We'll get back to that. And then you have Egolist. He is the baker. So we have 4 point of view characters in this book. So you have Egolist, the baker. He was a knight. He was actually the king's, who became the king, his right-hand man, and helped him in the big civil war that they had. And then he had a little conscience of faith. He didn't like some of the new policies, and he bailed out. He stopped being a servant of the king. Then you have Anara, who's the rich noble girl. Picture Buttercup if Buttercup was rich. And it was kind of that style. It's like very love. You definitely like the character. She's very kind. She's brave. She's got some guts to her, and she's going to go do what's needed. but yet she's still definitely young and definitely not seen a ton of the world. Uh-oh, we have a Breton coming. And then you have Skadeth. Oh, you're gonna show up. You gotta say hi. So if you're gonna interrupt, you gotta say at least say hi because people want to see the puppy. Then you have Skediseth, who is the god of white lies, who is the little god who is somehow bonded to Anara, who totally doesn't try to take over because little gods. Yeah. There's a big civil war in this area, so a little pre background on it. There was a civil war where the humans basically fought against the gods with a lot of the gods on their side. After they win, the king then turns on those gods, which is what ticked off Egolist. And so then you have gods are outlawed in this, and this is one of these realms where there's just tons of gods, right? Like you'd go to the bath and there'd be a bunch of gods in there. So all sorts of different types of gods. It's a neat world, and I like the feel to it. I like the pacing of the story. I thought it was really well done. The only thing I didn't like is it's a paperback. I wasn't gonna drop all the money to get one of the like Illumicrates or Fairy Loots or whichever ones are available off the off the reseller market. I kind of wish I did, especially when I saw the sequel and how nice that looked from Broken Binding. I really kind of wish I did. All right, next up. Next up's one I did. Oh, I'm trying not to drop things over here. This is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. Yeah, it's Leigh. That's how she pronounces it that way. She's an American author. This came out on April 9th, 2024. This is set in the Spanish Inquisition, which is a really cool time period. Now, it's a while after the Spanish Inquisition. I gave some more details. I have a video up if you want a longer review of this. So we go through some of the history and the timing and things. So you have Lucia. She has magical powers, even though she's a scullion, which is somebody who works in a medieval kitchen as a helper. She's got some powers, and everyone's going to try to use her for their own advantage to gain themselves political status and to take care of things. You have Santangel, Saint Angel, okay, who is a familiar, hence the name of the book. So familiar, he's some sort of magical creature who's bound to a family. And he's going to try to teach Lucia so that she can enter a competition to help the family so that she can get what she needs. And of course, are they going to fall in love? Well, there's a lot of good chemistry there. There's a lot of flirting. Again, Inquisition Spain. Probably should mention Lucia's family is some of the Jewish converts. So there is, and at some point, the Inquisition runs out of Jewish people who are actually doing Jewish practices and just turns after people who's had family who are anyone who is suspect at some point could be brought in for the Inquisition. I even like the story. There's a lot of Spanish terminology in there, a lot of good pieces like that, a lot of good extra additions in. I like when you get some really good background. Hello, you really want to be in this video, don't you? Say hi to everybody. All right, well, Brendan's getting some love. He is my come read buddy. He likes when we come in and read. Daughter comes in and read also, so he'll come in and just chill with us while we read. All right, book 4 that I finished. And it's the one we haven't talked about on the channel yet. Ocean's Godori. You want to talk about the last one was taking you on a culture ride with the Spanish Inquisition. This time we have Koreans in space. In fact, you have more than just Koreans. You have a lot of non-Koreans. I mean, as an American, I probably read their characters as American, but there's no guarantee they actually are American. They're just not Korean. This is by Elaine Yu Chu. This came out, oh gosh, it just came out a little bit ago. I'm trying to find where I hid my note. April 23rd. So this has been out, I'm filming on the 30th, so it's been out a week. Yeah, the first half of this book, man, I ripped through this. The first half of the book's all sorts of Korean phrases, Korean terminology, and yet plot, yet character, right? All right, it's really nice when you get that going. There is even in the back, there's even a Korean dictionary or a Korean glossary. One of the non-Korean characters has created it. This, by the way, is one of my favorite little tropes I've seen so far, or favorite author uses. So Elaine is from the States. She's Korean heritage, but she's from the States. So she made a character who is just Korean, but not quite Korean. Like the Koreans wouldn't see her as Korean. It's an interesting little way to handle not having to have everything be perfect Korean and being very, very good about introducing it to people who aren't Korean to get that culture. There's a lot of phrases in here. I am not going to butcher the Korean in this. I was tempted. My wife actually has been learning Korean for 4 years. It'd be interesting to see her. And when I sent her some of the phrases, she's like, "Oh yeah," and she knew what they meant. So she went through the glossary. It was pretty neat to see. Um, yeah, good story. Let's see. You've got 3 point of view characters. You have Ocean Young or Ocean Yoon. So Ocean, she is a badass pilot. She is a badass super shot. She, you know, is kind of relegated to these back burner little freighter type vessels for something that she did that she keeps hinting at as the book goes along. She's got an absolute heart of gold. Everyone loves her. The kind of person who, when she shows back up at when they're ready to leave, has got treats for everybody, you know, and personalized, not just like a bag of candy, but she said, "Oh, this person likes that," and goes and gets it for them. Which, in life, that is an easy way to be the person everyone loves, is by actually caring about people and paying attention to what they like. Yeah, spoiler if you want to know how to make friends and influence people. You also have Teo. He is the second son of a big military/mining conglomerate. And he is framed for murder. And he is also Ocean's best friend. And best friend, always neat when you see a guy and a gal as a best friend, and the guy's like tells other guys who like her, "Hey, by the way, I think she likes you a lot." Like, he's just straightforward with it. He is after making his friend happy. So that's fun. Other than the whole being framed for murder part. And then you have one other point of view character. You have Haven, who is a from a group of people who basically study death in all different death cultures, and everyone treats them poorly and doesn't want to touch them because they're vultures or death hands. And then throughout the book, he is like one of the kindest, nicest people. By the way, he's also the medic. How's he trained you without touching? But anyways, he's the medic too. He actually got his way onto the ship just because of Ocean, because Ocean has a certain amount of fame. So people knew her. Let's see, there's an alliance. There's a lot of things going on here. There's definitely a space opera, because you have raiders, you have politicians going at each other. You have horrible captains, like Captain Soon is captain. She needs to go out of an airlock. And she's always guilt tripping. I mean, it actually seems like almost the trope of the Asian mom who's gonna just absolutely guilt trip everybody or guilt them into whatever. She does that. It's really kind of funny when you see it. It's like, are you doing this? Because I think you are. That was first half of that book. First half of that book was a 4.5. I'm like, this book kicks butt. Go. Second half slowed down. Second half became more of a generic space opera. It probably went 3.5. So, I mean, I'd throw a 4 on it overall. I like the book. I think you should probably pick it up, especially if you want to know more Korean phrases or just kind of a feel for a Koreanish, Westernish mismatch together. It's always fun to see. All right, 2 audiobooks. We have Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm just finishing that up. It is Matt Dinniman. Like, it's going to finish up when that big fur monster that was down here wants to go for his hike. We're going to finish it up then. From January 2021, Earth gets acquired for minerals. All the buildings collapse. Spoiler, that happened at the beginning. If you were lucky and were outside when it collapsed, then you would hear a message saying, "Hey, you can come to a game show." And you had to be outside, not in a car, not in a plane. You had to be outside. Which, of course, really hurts when it's the North America's in the dark. So this is, and of course, Carl, by the way, spoiler, Carl's going to be the star character in Dungeon Crawler Carl. You get into this game show / dungeon crawl, a lit RPG, and the characters are well aware. The characters are adjusting their stats. They're trying to figure out how to game the system. They're trying to do the whole thing. It is hilarious. Carl goes in with his ex-girlfriend's cat, who somehow he does something cool and gets a super loot box that turns the cat, Donut, into Princess Donut, who can cast spells, who's quite a bit smarter than Carl. And yeah, hilarious. She is every prissy cat how she talks. We are now calling our cat Princess Donut. And maybe even one other one. My wife was joking about she wants another, when the next cat will be named something along the line, says what Carl's catchphrase is. Carl's catchphrase, unbeknownst to him, and then you're on the show and they were told, hey, you should get a catchphrase. Well, he's just got one naturally. He didn't know he was doing it. Instead of, like a wah, or whatever your thing you would shout when you're attacking. His is, God damn it, Donut. It fits. So we were talking about getting a GD donut just so we can say it around everybody. Not that I won't say it, but wifey's a little more polite than random Viking talking books. Although I'm not that Viking talking books. He's way more successful in this. Anyways, also one other one. I finally got through it. Oh, I was so happy to get through it. Told the Hounds. Stephen Erikson, Canadian author. Oh, Matt Dinniman, American. I don't think I mentioned these. Let's see. Annie's American. Hannah is Northumbrian. Elaine is American. Leigh, I'm going to call her Leigh. It's so hard. Leigh, but I've seen her on video and she says Leigh. She's American. Matt Dinniman's American. And the last one is Toll the Hounds. Malazan. Stephen Erikson, Canadian. June 2008. So it's going back there. I mean, the Malazan series has been going on a long time, and it took a long time really to get off the ground and become what it did. Like, it took social media to make Malazan. And once you start reading it, amazing. Like, I had a coworker who told me about it. He went to World Fantasy Con and somebody asked if he had read Erikson, and he said no, and he read it and he goes, oh, he recommended it to me. I'm reading it. I'm through book 8. And let's talk about these books for a second. I know I don't have them to show. I am ready for the broken binding when they sell them. They're actually coming out with the first 3 this year. And so I've done them all on audio. A book that big needs to be in hardback. Man, I would just want that. A nice edition. So yeah, it's coming. So I'm going to do a reread of it when the physical books arrive. Because I'm sure I missed a lot. How am I sure? Book 8 was 45 hours with a fantastic narrator, Michael Page. Fantastic narration, great story. You're just along for the ride. But 45 hours for me, because I normally do this while I walk the dog. I mean, it's been cold, it's been rainy for the past few months. I haven't been doing a lot of yard work. Not much time to get it done. So it's just while walking the dog, and I only walk so much in a month. So most of that book is the doggo and I walking. Almost all of it, actually. Maybe a couple hours for other things. This one centers on Darujistan. If you've read any of the previous ones, you know the name of the city. If you haven't, we're done, because I don't want to ruin it for you, other than to say I like the series more than when I started it. And that's a sign of a series going. But maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome at this point. Maybe it's just that it's like the Wheel of Time fans who would never reread it, but love it to death. No offense to the Wheel of Time fans. I actually haven't read it. But I think there's something about putting that much effort and that much of your time into a series that gets people really kind of engrossed. Just funny one. I was looking at it on Goodreads. So it's 4.37 on Goodreads. This is book 8 of a series. 219 people gave it a 1 star. What are you doing by book 8 if you haven't liked this series? Like, what is wrong with you? Book 8? And now you're giving 1 stars? Like, did you rate the others high and just hate this one? Because this one was great, but it had a very different narration feel. This one had a narrator who was, I'm not going to give names away who it is. You can hear it if you do the audio. You know who the character is. And maybe it sticks out better in the book. Maybe it identifies it. But just looking at it, I'm like, I know who this character is, and he is narrating for us. So interesting. So you would have narration and then stop and go into these scenes. That's a book that breaks itself into multiple books. And I think it's right. I mean, 45 hours. I mean, for next month's books, I've already got 2 lined up, and they're 12 and 13 hours. So they're half a Malazan. Dungeon Crawler Carl. You'll be through book 3.5, maybe 4 by the time you get through one of the Erikson books. Yeah, but I love them to death. All right, now before we take off, I got something to show you, and this is gonna be pretty cool. So hold on for a second, and we're gonna move the camera on up. All right, so for anyone who's doing Reddit's Our Fantasy Bingo for this year, a lot of different ways you can track and go, hey, how's my bingo going? Now it starts in April, so this was the first month of it. And most of us, like I had a lot of my books already pre-planned I was going to read for this month. So not everything's counting. Also, in case you ever wonder why I don't normally stand in here, well, because that's the ceiling. That's why I normally sit in the book dormer. It's a dormer. You know, what you going to do? But I made this up in, Pixelmator. Printed it or sent it to a printer, had it made into poster. So I got myself one, I got the daughter one. And so it's got all the different elements on Our Fantasy Bingo, and then also describes hard mode. And then I got a little crafty. And you might think, come on. Well, all right, I said a little crafty. I printed a piece of paper and stuck it to magnets. Wonk. These are actually magnets that are sticky. And so I got it for all my little books. The familiar doesn't actually count for hard mode. I could use it. I could use it for like the 2024, but it's certainly not her first novel. Leigh has a bunch of novels out. Empire of the Vampire. Again, maybe, I mean, you could argue it's survival. You could, because basically you're trying not to die. And I very well could use Erikson tool there. I could certainly use that for my multi POV, but I actually have a different one coming I want to use for that. So I'm just keeping these on the side. I've got a little magnet thing over on the side. I'll set them on. Just like a little parking lot over there, you can see. Instead, let's go for the ones I managed to close this month. And my goal is to do this and be done in December, which means 8 months, 25 squares. You got to do all squares. So 25 squares. I figure one of the months I'll get a 4th in. So it will be nice, and that's my goal, is to get it done in December so I could turn into January and just go after some series and try to finish off some series that I've been reading. Because that's actually kind of the downside on something like Our Fantasy, or well, the bingo in Our Fantasy. You can only use one author once. So how you read a new series? Yeah, you could read one book from a series and it counts, but you're not, if you're trying to do like I'm doing with Malazan, and I'm going to finish it by hopefully summer, well, maybe late summer, then yeah, there's not much ability to just pop it and do the whole thing in 1 month and do this without getting a sum of your reading aside. Also, just my reading plan. I like to try to always have something new from that month. It's just one of those things I like to keep up on the reading. All right, so let's go for it and see where we got some of these. First up, Antibot. All right, Antibot was published in 2024, and the hard mode for this one, I know it's a little hard to see there, the hard mode is that it has to be the author's debut novel. Ta-da. And I can move these around. That's why we could have just handwritten on a poster, just drawn on there with sloppy handwriting. But I can move these. So if I change my mind and want to do something else, I can. All right, next up, Godkiller. Godkiller is actually the book club. One of the book club is a book club for next month for the feminism and fiction, feminism and fantasy, or feminism and fiction. I don't remember the exact name of it. We'll put it down below. But it's their book club, and I love the book, so I'm jumping in because they're very inclusive, and they'll let a guy who looks like me jump in. Next one up, Ocean's Godori. The space opera, right? That Korean space opera that we were just talking about a little bit ago. It's a space opera. They're going around multiple planets. They keep meeting big crews. In fact, it's such a space opera because you keep running into new people. Like all of a sudden, there's a second crew that you're trying to keep track of. I was like, oh man, that's a lot of people. So we're going to aim this one in. It's a space opera. The space opera, the hard mode is, it must be written by an author of marginalized gender, e.g. a woman, trans person, or non-binary. as everything I can tell from her picture, she is. So, boom. 3 done. 1 month in, 3 done. The poster is going to be up, and every month I'll just see how many more I'm getting. I think next month I'm going to try for 4. I like to get ahead of the game, but there are some pretty good books coming out. So, and that's how it works. Right? Either good books come out or books from England show up, and I'm going to do those instead. Hey, real fast. And let me know down in the comments if anybody wants a copy of this. I'll figure out how to post the Pixelmator. Also, I can post it as a PNG. So that's what I used when I sent it. It's a PNG. It's just 24 by 36. You could shrink it if you wanted to, and then making the pictures is really easy. So I can rock through that too in the comments if anyone's interested. All right, I'll see you.